There's a creek in rural Appalachia that runs dry every 7 years, exactly on the same date, for exactly one night. Locals call it the Remembering. In 2009, 3 geology students camped beside it to find out why. Only one of them still talks about what they saw in the dry creek bed, and even now, she won't say it above a whisper. In September of 2009, 3 graduate students, Sarah Whitfield, Tom Bradley, and Naomi Okafor, traveled to a remote hollow in West Virginia to study an unusual hydrological pattern, a creek that, according to decades of local reports, ran completely dry once every 7 years, always on the same night in autumn, then refilled by morning as if nothing had happened. Their university dismissed it as folklore exaggerating a natural drought cycle. The 3 of them wanted proof either way. They got more than they were looking for. Sarah is the only one who still speaks about it, and only in fragments. The first day. They arrived at the hollow 2 days before the predicted date, setting up camp on a ridge overlooking the creek bed. An old farmer named Elias Pruitt, whose family had lived along that hollow for 5 generations, warned them not to camp so close. The creek doesn't just dry up, he told them, leaning on his truck. It empties. There's a difference. Something drinks it dry, and whatever it is, it likes to see who's watching when it does. Tom laughed it off as regional folklore, the kind every isolated community develops about its natural landmarks. Elias didn't argue. He simply told them that if the water started making noise after it was gone, they should not look at the creek bed directly, only listen, and that they should never answer if something down there said their names. He left without waiting for a response. That night, the creek ran normally, water moving steadily over stone the way it had for as long as anyone could measure. They recorded flow data, took soil samples, and slept without incident. The second day. On the second night, the predicted night, the creek began behaving strangely just after 9 p.m. The water level dropped fast, far faster than any natural drought process could account for, as if something beneath the streambed had opened like a drain. By 9:40, the creek bed was completely dry, exposing smooth stones that, according to Naomi's instruments, were bone-dry despite having been submerged moments earlier. No natural evaporation could explain the speed. Then the sound started. It was not the sound of water. It was low, rhythmic, almost like breathing, a slow inhale and exhale rising from beneath the exposed stones, as if the empty creek bed itself had lungs. Sarah described it later as the worst part of the whole night, worse than anything that came after, because it was the sound of something enormous, and very patient, and clearly awake. Naomi wanted to go down and examine the dry bed directly. Tom, remembering Elias's warning, insisted they stay on the ridge and only observe. They compromised, using a long-range camera with a spotlight to examine the creek bed from a distance instead of walking down. Through the viewfinder, Naomi saw something moving beneath the stones, not on top of them, but through them, as though the rock itself had gone soft and something was swimming just beneath its surface, displacing stone the way a body displaces water. Then, clearly, deliberately, the breathing sound formed itself into a word. It said Tom's name. Midnight. Tom did not answer, remembering Elias's warning, but Sarah said his whole body went rigid, as if some part of him wanted to. The voice repeated his name twice more, patient and unhurried, each time slightly closer to the ridge where they stood, though the dry creek bed had not visibly changed and nothing had audibly moved. Naomi, watching through the camera's night vision, said later that on the second call, she saw something rise very briefly above the stones, not a full shape, just a suggestion of one, tall and narrow, the length of the dry bed reflected wrong in its outline, before sinking back beneath the rock as if it had never fully committed to surfacing. At 12:14 a.m., the breathing stopped. The creek bed remained bone-dry, and silent, for exactly 11 more minutes. Sarah remembers checking the time obsessively, unable to look away from her watch, because looking at the creek bed itself had started to feel like an invitation. At 12:25, water returned to the creek exactly as it had left, not filling gradually, but arriving all at once, the way a bathtub fills when a faucet is opened fully. Within a minute, the creek was flowing normally again, as though the entire event had been erased. They should have left then. Instead, driven by scientific instinct or simple denial, they decided to wait until morning to pack up, agreeing to keep watch in shifts. Sarah took the last shift, just before dawn. She said that as the sky began to lighten, she heard, very faintly, from somewhere downstream, Tom's voice call her name, calm, ordinary, exactly like him, asking her to come look at something in the water. Tom was asleep beside her the entire time. She did not go. Morning. When they properly woke Tom for breakfast, he did not respond. His sleeping bag was empty except for his boots, still laced, sitting upright inside it as if he had simply stepped out of them without unlacing them at all. Something Sarah said was somehow more disturbing than if he had vanished completely. They searched the hollow for 6 hours with Elias's help. They found no trace of Tom anywhere along the creek, upstream or down, though Elias, examining the dry creek bed's now wet stones, pointed silently to a faint discoloration along several rocks, a pattern, he said, that appeared only after the creek took someone, and faded completely within a week, as if the creek needed time to fully digest what it had been given. Tom was officially reported as lost during a hiking accident. Naomi left graduate school entirely within the year and has not spoken publicly about that night since. Sarah finished her degree, but never returned to fieldwork near running water. Elias, before they left the hollow for the last time, told her one final thing: the creek didn't take people out of hunger. It took them because, once every 7 years, it needed someone to remember it, someone who would carry the sound of that breathing with them for the rest of their life, so that the creek itself would never be forgotten by anyone who lived near it. Sarah says she still hears it sometimes, faintly, whenever she runs bath water at exactly 9 p.m., a low, patient breathing, just beneath the sound of the water, waiting to see if she'll look.